Hey, bird watchers, welcome to another episode of the ShiftLeft podcast, where we explore the technology, processes, and people shaping global content operations. I'm your host, Dan Mozarski, VP of Solutions at Blackbird.io, and a veteran of the localization world for over 2 decades. In this episode, I welcome Wada Fahel, former head of globalization at Xerox, Harley-Davidson, and Zendesk, and now the founder of Lockverse. And together we're going to explore how AI, storytelling, and localization strategy are all colliding. So we're going to unpack how traditional ideas of centralization are being replaced by now flexible, governed ecosystems, and why emerging roles in content tech, market readiness, and human-in-the-loop operations are reshaping the localization profession. And Wada, I really appreciate you joining me here today. Thank you so much.
Hi, Dan. Thank you for having me. The pleasure is mine.
We shared some time together out in California, so Monterey, and then we did an amazing drive. Thank you for including us in that. That was just such a scenic drive, great lunch, great time together, and that's where I learned that you are a golfer. We went over to Pebble Beach, which is
Yeah.
just, I mean, again, I'm not a golfer, but there are some key golf courses in the United States that you've heard of, and Pebble Beach is like one of those. Like, I know it, and it was amazing to
Yes.
see it. So, tell me about golfing. How'd you get into golfing, and where did that all start from?
Yeah, no, I started a few years ago. So it's not a childhood activity or dream, but I was looking for an activity that helped me break from the daily grind during lunch break. And there was a range by our house where you could go and just swing. And I started swinging casually first, and then I hired a coach, and I fell in love with the game. And she started taking me on actual golf courses. And you know, when you practice something and you realize that you're actually good at it, because you can try various activity and realize it's not for you. Diving, for example. My husband likes to dive. I know it's not for me. But with golfing, I felt that. I connected with the game. It cleared my head. I could do it over lunch break, like go to the range and swing. And then when you step on the golf course for the first time, it's quite intimidating. But it also, the green, the idea of walking on green clears your head. And it helped me a lot in my personal and business life. So I fell in love with it. I worked very closely with a coach, and I still work with her sometimes. And I try to ship my clubs and explore golf courses around the US and hopefully internationally soon as much as I can.
It's amazing, and you close deals. Always closing deals on the golf.
You know, they say it's not cliche, by the way. They say that the best deals happen on the golf course, and I've experienced it firsthand, so I can't deny that.
Any memories or biggest victories? Anything that stands out from your golfing adventures?
Victories. Well, I think my favorite memory is when I stepped for the first time on an 18-hole course, golf course. I was intimidated, and I knew I was going to embarrass myself because you had all of these golfers. You go by turn, but my coach was with me, and she gave me a great boost of morale. And I got two holes in one on that day. Beginner's
Wow.
luck, totally beginner's luck. But golfing is one of those activities that even if you have great instincts or you're great golfers, things could go sideways and you could have a very, very bad day. So when something like this happens, I remind myself that the first time I stepped on a golf course, I got two holes in one. And that helps me pushing through.
Oh, that's yeah, that's it's great. It's always keeps you grounded and setting
Yeah.
expectations for things, and just it's like, yeah, I might have gotten two holes in one my first time playing golf, and I might never get them again.
Same.
you
That's what
know.
I keep telling myself.
And now, other than golf, you also explained to us that you still own a motorcycle
Yeah.
from your
Blackbirdio.
Harley Davidson days. Not
Mhm.
riding it as much anymore, but
Right.
how do you think like working there? And I love the concept of we talk about it at Blackbird, eat your own dog food. And so this is literally, it's like if you're gonna work at Harley, we got to
Yeah,
know what the
drink your
Harley
own
is.
champagne. Right.
Exactly. Yeah, that's probably better than eating dog food. Um, But how did you think like working there kind of started to shape how you thought about like global brand storytelling?
Right. Harley, I consider Harley the highlight of my career, really. I spent 8 years there, and it opened my eyes to the importance of a brand identity and how it impacts the way you strategize and build a localization foundation. After a few months on the job, I realized that I was not working for a global brand. I was working for an American icon going global. And there's a huge difference between a global brand and American icon going global. Because with a global brand, you navigate linguistic and cultural waters. You have to land and be compliant in a certain market. You can adapt as much as you want to achieve a CX experience, right? A strong CX experience. But when you're working for an American icon, you have to navigate these waters, but retain and maintain the brand prestige and integrity. The lifestyle, the image of the brand are the product, not the motorcycle. And when you achieve this realization, it shapes the way you look at everything, not just the content localization, but also the way you resource, the way you build the foundation, the way you onboard talent and engage your agencies. So that added great value to the way I looked at business in general, not just localization. And since then, every time I work on a project or when I move to Zendesk, for example, the first thing I look at during my environmental scan or discovery is the brand identity. Are we working with a global brand or an icon going global? And that impacts the way you build your foundation, your centers of operations excellence, and strategy in general.
Oh yeah, no, that's remarkable. You think about like yeah, I had a guest on previously where we're talking about like mission statements, right? And then
Mhm.
the moment that you say, be the best in the world, you're going to be the best in the world. Like that moment, you should start thinking about like, okay, then what does that mean for my global brand? But this is something even bigger than that. This is something that
Yes.
where it's like Harley Davidson here in the States it is a household name. And whether
Yeah,
you're a motorcycle rider or not, like whatever, like it is something that is part of the American DNA. And how do you
absolutely.
then make that global? That's incredibly insightful. Now, I know that you said the traditional idea of centralization is no longer the gold standard. So, what's replacing it? And what's replacing it? And then why is it better for these modern times?
Yeah, I might get a lot of heat for that statement, but my answer might surprise you. I think it has less to do with AI and more to do with the mindset of the next generation of buyers and decision makers and budget owners, because they value freedom and flexibility. If we think about the next few years from now, millennials and different generations are going to be owning the budget and making decisions on the buyer side of the business. Centralization is good in terms of providing you governance, eliminating silos, achieving economies of scale, but it does not have freedom and flexibility. And when you're on the buyer side, if the going gets tough with your technology or the services centralized with a certain vendor, the process of offboarding and onboarding is excruciating, and not to mention the disruption of your daily operations. At the same time, if you don't want to centralize, you want to work with five, six various agencies, you have to be responsible for the governance side of things, and you have to manage multiple POs and multiple invoices on a monthly or quarterly basis. I dreaded having to create multiple POs and manage invoicing at the same time. The next generation of professionals and budget owners will have zero patience for that. If you have a teenager in the house, you'll know. I have to. And I have to limit my speech to 40 characters, and I have to be very, very clear on expectations, and they have to be easy. Um, so I think the centralized what the future is about, what I like to call an ultimate governed flexibility, and this is quite comparable with what Blackbird is offering now. You are flexible by design, central by default, the power of many, the governance of one. The option of logging into or working with a single organization or company, but having the great and ultimate flexibility to select the tech, the workflow, or the style guides, or what have you, depending on the various types of content that you have. And if you don't like them, it's not an excruciating onboarding offboarding process. You can switch gears to another agency or another workflow, or maybe add a quality control or add MT to it. Um, this is huge. This is governance at its best without having to worry about being restricted. Now, I don't want to completely rule out centralization because it's currently working with some of my clients. If the content is fully structured, for example, in a manufacturing space, the majority of content, let's say 80%, 90%, is tech pubs. So owner's manuals, service manuals, data sheets. You set up a system, you clone it, and then it's paint by number. Centralization works perfectly there. But if you're a buyer responsible for various types of content, ranging from compliance all the way to creative, you don't have the luxury of or the time to select multiple vendors, go through the RFP procurement process, engage various stakeholders in the tiering or the weighting criteria, and then onboarding. And when things go sideways, you're stuck. So what I really admire about Blackbird IO is the disruption of the industry is it's like the gift from the gods. I can access all of these platforms and models and workflows and fine-tuning them, but I'm not restricted to any of them. And I can shift gears when I need to. And by the way, I don't have to worry about version control or updates being pushed through because they're going to be all combined in this single platform. They're going to govern it for me. So this is why I feel that centralization is good, but it's no longer the gold standard. We are shifting towards more of a, ultimate governed flexibility. It sounds like an oxymoron, but I think this is what's going to save the industry from extinction.
Yeah, listen, and I think within the last few years, we've had two major disruptions. I mean, we had, of course, the global pandemic, which
Mm-hmm.
showed a lot of large organizations the risks of a single vendor approach or centralization. I think that that created a lot of changes to how large enterprise organizations approach their vendor selection and having risk mitigation in place. So we saw that. And then, of course, we saw generative AI, which
Mm-hmm.
continues to be a disruptor. It wasn't one disruption point. It continues to be this
Yes.
disruption point.
Mm-hmm.
But what I think each one kind of shine the light on is um, as things change, you need to be able to look at things more modular and take a piece out and put a piece in, take a piece out and
Yes.
put a
It's
piece
like a
in, because
puzzle. Mm-hmm.
it's exactly right. And like, I mean, I know you and I sit here right now and say, I wish I knew what was coming next.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I knew, because then I'd invest in it and then
Mm-hmm.
I would make a lot of money from that. But I don't know what is coming next. All I know is if it's coming next, someone needs the ability to plug it into their environment, plug something else out. And I think that's where the ability, the flexibility to interchange things is so crucial nowadays. And the name of this podcast is Shifting Left, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so the concept is, and you've probably experienced this, is for so long localization, translation, content, internationalization was on the back end of the process and
Mm-hmm.
so reactive. And I think
Yes.
now the technology and some of the people that are being put in place are making it less reactive, more integrated with the front end operations. So when we talk about like these changes and these concepts of finally getting to the shift left mentality, like, what new roles do you think are emerging or will be emerging in localization and content tech that maybe didn't exist a few years ago, and kind of what skill set people are going to need to adapt in this new world?
Certainly. Now, there are exciting new roles that we're seeing. Now, prompt agent is one of them. You see it on all of the job boards, but I've worked with a few clients during summer, and we came up with very exciting roles in localization, content tech, and AI specifically. And they're quite exciting, actually. So the first one that comes to my mind is the localization monetization manager. So this is the individual is responsible to figure out the content to localize, which markets should they go to, and it really challenged the way we think about market tiering and language tiering. So throughout our careers, FIGs, French, Italian, German, Spanish, topped the list. Now with AI and the monetization side of things, you realize that Not necessarily. Through AI, I can actually expand this list and maybe have a different tiering model when it comes to languages. The other one that goes hand in hand with monetization is the predictive AI strategist. And this is like half data scientist, half localization manager. Their role is to analyze and assess the data or the localization of certain content and the level of engagement across the board for a period of time, and then leverage this data to predict how the next campaign is going to land in certain markets and how it's going to perform. So you couple that role with the monetization manager or strategist role, and you have a solid duo there that will support you with the localization strategy. The other one is that is quite prevalent, and we see it now on job boards, and it's the localization governance manager, because of the stakes are high when it comes to AI ethics, regulation, the guardrails needed to curb any risks. So this is gaining quite the ground on both the agency side of the business and also the buyer side of the business. So there are other roles that I came across, but these are the top three roles that I found quite exciting and interesting. And in terms of the skill set required, now, the old school localization skill sets can be leveraged here, but I think what is needed now, and I've been talking about this for a while, is the strategic mindset in terms of understanding things from the client lens and how the industry is evolving. You touched on a very important point saying we don't know what the future holds. As humans, we're very bad at predicting the future. But there are two things that are facts, and we're going through them right now. The first one is that budgets are shrinking, content is growing exponentially. Okay. And this is what we need to look at when we look at our org structure. That's why the monetization person and the predictive analyst are going to be needed, because we need to leverage what we have to our best ability, but also come up with specific KPIs to demonstrate what we're trying to accomplish here. Um, so these are the roles that I think are going to be more and more prevalent moving forward. And hopefully we'll have some breakthrough in the industry because it's long overdue.
Yeah, it's fascinating too, and I think from a strategy standpoint too is and think of some of the best strategists in the world are chess players, right? And if you've ever played chess, you know that at times there are certain sacrifices you need to make. You're
Mm,
predicting, moves a couple moves ahead, but there's you are making moves that I'm going to lose a piece on this move to set me up for success. And I
mm,
think in the same way that our industry is evolving and thinking of a strategy term is there's definitely roles that will no longer be here in a couple of years and we have to be
yes,
willing to sacrifice those, but we also have to say that these new roles will be emerging. And then
yes.
also on a content side of things, there is specific content that we don't necessarily need the human touch on anymore, and we need to
Mhm.
be willing to sacrifice as the localization professionals to say is like, if I'm advising a customer, if I'm talking to an end customer, I need to advise them on a content strategy where I can still get the work that means the most to me and to them and help them govern or move around the pieces of this content can be automatically machine translated and go over here. This might need a level of AI review. This goes over here. This still needs human interactions. And then advising our customers on that content strategy as opposed to being, reactive and just saying, I hope that I get some translation work someday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you touch on a very important point here that, and in chess's terms, there's more to chess than protecting the queen. And I feel that we focus a lot on earning the business and saying yes and being submissive rather than being a thought leader and going to the client and say, hey, I understand that this is the app or this is the tool that you want me to leverage and use, but for short form content, for example, you might not even need this tool because AI will get you 90% there. And again, this thought leadership hat that is not being worn enough when it comes to addressing the client is backfiring because most agencies feel or think that, oh, we're being a good partner. Are you? I feel that you're being reactive and as a thought leader and demonstrating to the client that you're bringing a solution that didn't even occur to them. And I hope that we're going to evolve. We need more work in that space, definitely. And some clients are stubborn. Some clients are difficult to work with. I was a client difficult to work with. I had high expectations, but I I leaned in and I listened when the agency had something to offer. And I think this is what's missing right now. There's not We're not coming across as thought leaders when addressing the client.
Yeah, and so there's definitely the people side of it, and then there's definitely the technology side of it as well, where we're
It's a
looking at
combination of things.
it is, yeah, and we're looking at LLMs and AI and what is being currently done in the industry, what's been tested, what so it's it's so easy, especially from an outsider, to say it's like let's focus in just on translation. Let's just focusing on the task of translation, but localization professionals know that it's not like tell a translator sit down and translate. Like there's so many components to the process where AI could be elevating. There's of course risk assessments or source content assessments, and there's file formatting. There's all these other surrounding processes to just translation. But I feel like again, it's fixated on using AI for translation or post editing
Yeah.
or whatever that is. Is there something specifically about AI that you've seen that excites you in localization?
Well, many things. The first one, obviously, the new roles, because for a while we were talking about doom and gloom and roles being eliminated, and only to realize that more roles have surfaced and more to come. So the roles are exciting. The disruption that is happening in the industry, and we talked about this earlier, in terms of having this governed flexibility finally, having this freedom to select or work with various tools in a single environment, like the solution that Blackbird is offering. This is exciting because I do believe that we've been stagnant in the industry for decades, leveraging the same terminology, leveraging the same KPIs. And now there's this new solution that will hopefully save us from extinction. And it's governance and freedom and flexibility at its best. So these are all exciting things that will happen because they carry an AI component to them. You are agnostic, you are tool agnostic, you can be agile and flexible and evolve with the change. I think the ultimate goal is to be flexible enough to evolve with the change because we cannot predict what's going to happen in 3 months from now. In the past, if you go to Taos or Lockworld or join any conversation or forum, the talk was about how things are going to look like in 3 years or 5 years from now. We've effectively moved from soon enough to real time. Now we talk about how things will look like in a quarter.
Right, right.
And I think as a localization industry, we have a very strong foundation to weather the change and the evolution. We just have to be looking in the right direction. And that's the opportunity right there.
Yeah, I think it's funny as former CTO, and I get clients asking me questions like, well, "What's your 5-year roadmap?" I'm like, "I'm trying to figure out what my next month roadmap is at this point, right?" You know?
Let's face it, it was never realistic. Even pre-AI, it was never realistic to ask this question.
Um, so speaking of that, like when you're dealing with execs or what are some misconceptions that you hear from them, or maybe even content teams about using AI? Is there still some work to be done on the localization industry side to kind of curb some of these misconceptions?
Oh, plenty. But the most prevalent one is with compliance because the stakes are super high. But I was in a meeting a few months ago, and the compliance director made a statement that was quite baffling, and I hope he's not watching. He won't be watching this podcast, but he said that if you add enough guardrails, the AI will automatically stay compliant. And I'm like, as a compliance person, you shouldn't be making that statement because AI will hallucinate facts, will also mix old policies with new policies. We know that the AI results are not time stamped, so you're gonna get a mix of things, and you have to judge which one works best, and then you're gonna drift over time with context changes. So the idea that for compliance you can add some guardrails and the content will be compliant across 5, 6, 7 languages I think is a huge misconception and a huge risk. We're not there yet. Definitely not there yet. Um, the other misconception is if we train AI well, then it will be compliant forever. So that discounts completely that the content will evolve, the policies will change. And you're basically saying that AI understands compliance and is gonna evolve and grow just like kids mature. And to me, this is a huge misconception because you're putting your content and your company at risk.
Wow, that's crazy. Um, I know storytelling is huge for you, and I know that talking to um, executives about their narratives of what's going on in their brand or their world. Uh, let's talk about visibility when it comes to these things, and how can localization leaders elevate their work to be seen as this strategical and cross-functional. What is their storytelling? What is their narrative to get to be seen as this individual with the buyers and the executives on the buyer side?
That's an excellent question. Then I think it's been a nagging issue for years. Long before AI, localization professionals, especially on the buyer side of the business, um, do not make an effort to evolve the narrative or the storytelling side of things or speaking the language of their stakeholders. When you're on the buyer side, your internal stakeholders are actually your clients. So it's comparable to having an agency, and nobody's interested in listening about TMSs and fuzzy matches when you're on the buyer side of the business. You lose your audience in the first 10 seconds if you start leveraging this terminology while trying to sell the value of your work. Um, what worked best for me throughout my career is never leveraging localization jargon or mumbo jumbo in any presentation while addressing stakeholders. Deep diving and understanding the divisions and the business units around you and tying your KPIs to your pain points. So, for example, when supporting compliance, the ultimate priority for compliance is governance and avoiding fines in certain markets like Canada, for example, or Japan or Germany. By tying your KPIs, your localization KPIs, to their pain points and to their KPIs, that builds relatability. There's a huge power in relatability because when people relate to what you're saying, they start listening. When they're listening, there's engagement. Engagement leads to a call to action and eventually executive sponsorship and budget. When you're talking or addressing marketing, our KPIs were conversions, traffic to the website, and so forth and so on. And I nurtured and coached my team members throughout my career on leveraging these specific KPIs and being curious about your stakeholders and audience. Get over the victim mentality because we have this in localization. Like, oh, we're not engaged upstream in the process. We're always the afterthought. Yes, absolutely. I agree. But what are we doing as professionals to nurture and to create this relatability with our stakeholders? Also, small wins lead to a long-term compounding effect. If you have a success story with a certain business unit on the buyer side, you can leverage this success story and expand to another business unit. This is exactly what happened at Harley Davidson with us because we started on compliance. Compliance is not an option, so you get budget. You're going to get $6 million budget just because compliance is not an option. But you have a success story there. You go to a brand and share with them what you've done. They give you a chance, and then you tie in your KPIs to their pain point. That's another success story. And you build that over the course of a year. It's a nurture strategy. So the idea of, okay, we're going to put together this amazing presentation, get in front of the leadership, E-staff and C-staff, and tell them how great localization is. And bam, we're going to get executive sponsorship and budget is false. This is really a long-term nurture strategy that leads to relatability, engagement, and eventually call to action.
Yeah, and it is encompassing the shift left mindset just in a different way. You're shifting the relationship side of it. You're shifting to thinking of the mindset of the
Mm-hmm.
people you're interacting with, because ultimately, um, one is they have a pain point. They've got a
Mm-hmm.
problem that they have. It's a business
Yep.
problem, and you're
Mm-hmm.
helping them solve that business problem. Two,
Mm-hmm.
by empathy, understanding, relating to them, you're creating a partnership there where they see you as someone that is helping them get over this challenge and then hopefully making them into an internal hero on their side. Because once you've got an internal hero, those are the people that then eventually do get more power and more say into things. And now you've got kind of planted the seeds at a lower level of engagement and now have created this dynamic where this person could be an exec or at least be at the ear of the exec. And then you're right. It is then once planting the seeds here, it's like using those victories then to expand out and demonstrate value. But it has to be to something you said before too. Is it has to be adaptable. It has to be something where it's like it's not one size fits all. It's not like what you did for this group is going to work over here. You want to leverage those experiences, but you want to then say, yeah, what are your goals? What are you what at the end of the day, what do you define success as? And then helping them get there. And I think that's a wonderful concept of how to elevate the value of what localization professionals are doing and ultimately further move upstream, further embed yourselves into the processes where you are seen as this strategic partner where, yeah, they don't want to just come to you for a translation. They're coming to you for, in essence, like business advice, you know?
Certainly. And taking initiative, there are subtle gestures that you could take at a company wide level that will help you establish yourself as an ally and as a trusted advisor. For example, many of us towards the end of the quarter, we have overage and budget, and you have to spend this budget, otherwise, you're going to lose it. So, what I used to do, for example, I would reach out to some marketing folks or some compliance folks and say, hey, how do you say we pilot? I have enough budget to pilot this project for this certain market. We could test the waters and see if we're doing everything right or if we need to add more languages. They appreciate the gesture because you're coming across not just as a localization expert, but as a strategist. You thought about their area and you want to partner and engage with them to assess the GTM strategy as a whole. So this is a subtle gesture. It will pay off in the future. Sometimes calling them out during a town hall when you have thousands of employees on a town hall and you call out your partner or a stakeholder because your work together yielded amazing time and cost savings. This is a subtle gesture, but it will pay off in the future. So there are many things that professionals could take at a personal level or professional level to establish this confidence and rapport, and they'll pay off. I unfortunately this mindset is not quite instilled in localization professionals because they're very operational and not strategic enough.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that skill set. Yeah, the evolution of the skill set. What is going to be needed for the future, and I think that's definitely part of it. Is that willingness to yeah, not just go with the flow, but kind of be, that advisor, be vocal, be, willing to take a little bit of risks. It's the entrepreneurial spirit of like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you don't get what you don't ask for. That was,
Right.
what some of the greatest wisdom I ever received. So anyway, great conversation. You want to look at Blackbird? You want to walk through Blackbird? And I
Absolutely.
got a little demo set up for you. So this is Contentful, right? This is a
Mm-hmm.
content management system. This is where content is that, and you can see we have our Dutch translation. We don't have a German translation just
Mm-hmm.
yet. So let's head over to Blackbird here, and we'll look at Blackbird. And so I've set up a bird, and we're talking about governance. We're talking about controls. We're talking about automation. We're talking about AI. We're talking about a lot of things here, and I felt like this was a bird that can kind of help summarize it. It's not all inclusive. We can definitely add even more stuff to it, and maybe we will. But let's just look at how this is designed right now. Is we've defined here that when this content in Contentful is going to be published, we're going to add a tag to it. And we're going to give that's going to be like the high sign. I'm working in Contentful as a content creator. I'm like, okay, it's finally done. I've gone through all the SEO. I've gone through all the keywords. I've done everything and it's ready for localization. So I'll put a tag here in the little tag section, ready for localization. So not going to finalize it yet, but we're going to do that. So we have this tag here. Now, going back to Blackbird, we're going to pick up this signal and say, okay, great. What are we going to do with it? Well, we're going to get this content And I'm generating a URL because later on in the process, you see I have a little Slack message here that I'm going to send. So I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking ahead of my
Mm-hmm.
process. It's like, all right, I want to communicate this out to someone. So we're doing some work here. Now, the other thing we're doing is we're checking for a tag that exists in Contentful. And if we then not just put ready for localization, but what if we put machine translation here? No, not red machine, machine. We want machine translation. So we're going to add this tag as well. So then that is dynamically going to route here on this workflow. That's going to, we said this content doesn't need the
Mm-hmm.
human review. It's going to machine translate, automatically post edit it, and it's going to update by entry, and then it's going to send my Slack message. If that tag isn't there, then maybe we go a more traditional route. We create our project in our cat tool, and then we wait for that process to be done. And once the humans have verified that the human in the loop process is done, then we send it back. But this is just a way to kind of dynamically, and let's just run it. Let's just see what happens in real time. Like publish my content here. Let's go back to Blackbird and look at our flight. So here we go. We can see that we've triggered everything. It's running through. We had the machine translation tag there, so it's already machine translating it. So we saw that it went through our process here. It's automatically post-edited. Now it's updating the entry. I just got a Slack message. So we go over to Slack. You can see I got my little message
Mm-hmm.
that it was ready. Our bird has finalized. And then it removed the ready for localization tag and said localization complete. So if we go back to Contentful here, we can see localization completed has been added automatically, and we have our German translation that's in there. So this is just talking about, yeah, the process automation where what I always say is like I like people living in their natural habitats. I don't want them to have to come to Blackbird to click a button. I want them to work in the tools that they live
They
in,
like.
and
Exactly.
they interact with them the way that they would. So even here, like I sent a Slack message, well, we can have another bird that interacts with a new Slack message. So if you give
Mm-hmm.
like you reply back, and maybe it triggers another bird, or you can have a project management system like Jira or Asana, and you're talking about like the human in the loop that can have pause points there to say a human has to make a decision here. And I think this is where I see part of the future of and part of the current state of where localization is going is my background originally was process. Like I got into
Mm-hmm.
the industry on the process side of things. I was,
Mm-hmm.
looking at process interactions, and then I got into technology and how they kind of intertwine. And I think we need to get back to like understanding like process interactions and cause and effect of things, and then say, where does a human actually add value to the process? Like,
Absolutely.
and that's our human in the loop points right there. Otherwise, I think that AI is doing such a great job with these ancillary tasks and being able to like draft things for us. Like, I shouldn't have to do a risk assessment. I should be having AI draft me a risk assessment, and then I evaluate the risk assessment, or I make a decision based off the risks that have been identified, and then based off of my decision, then it can route to a workflow. And I think that's where we need to look at some of our traditional processes and how they can evolve using technology that we have nowadays.
Certainly, I think the attention is more on the roles that are being eliminated and how AI is replacing other things, and instead of to your point, shifting left and understanding how we can leverage this technology to the best of our ability. Now, I did time you when you created this bird and launched the translation, and it took you less than 10 seconds, A to Z. Imagine doing this in a standard workflow environment. It's going to take at least 24 hours, and we're talking just one language. 24 hours if you're lucky, and if the time zone difference is on your side. So, what we're seeing today is huge. And of course, now if you leverage ChatGPT, you're going to also be able to apply it in 10 seconds, but is it governed? Is it safe? Is it reliable? It isn't. And here Blackbird is coming in with this ultimate governed flexibility that you can trust. So I think you guys are doing an amazing job.
Yeah. What One of the other things I love too is enabling new prompt windows as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you live in Jira or Monday or Asana, that essentially can become your prompt window with Blackbird in the back end,
Hmm.
extracting that metadata,
Oh, wow.
and so you can dynamically pull this metadata from these systems, and that
Yes.
becomes your ability to then customize even further some of these activities. So I'll share my screen again. I'll do another show and tell
Yeah.
here of looking at Blackbird and just looking at like our our open AI right here, right? So if we have an additional instruction here, so we can dynamically pull from a previous step. So imagine we have like a Jira step up here. Why not? Let's just add Jira just for fun here. Jira, right? And say we already have a task that has already been created or an issue that's already been created, right? So we have get issue, right? So now we have this issue, and imagine it's this issue right here, right? So then we can say in that issue in Jira, we've added instructions. Now,
Okay.
all I got to do is dynamically connect those instructions from Jira here. So now Jira now becomes my prompt window. So I can further
Mm-hmm.
instruct AI in the back end of Blackbird to say, it's this customer, or I want you to evaluate it with this tone, or keep this in mind. It really becomes that customizable element to it where you can have a very structured um, AI interaction that can still be leveraging insights. Maybe you want to enhance your content from information from your CRM. Maybe you use Salesforce or HubSpot, and you want to extract that content out and enhance it with that information. You can enrich that and then create like very dynamic content based off of a user not having to come to Blackbird and do it, but just sitting in any environment that they want to add to it. Yeah.
Right. And you're creating behaviors that might be leveraged and cloned for a different company or a different organization because based on your findings and the pressure testing and everything you've done, you can create a case study and say, hey, based on your industry or your workflows, we recommend these set of behaviors that we put together or these tags. So it's an ongoing learning curve with all of the tags and obviously connecting these various ecosystems. And when Bruno explained to me the rationale behind Blackbird, I was blown away. The idea that, and I didn't know that the blackbird migrates from one country to another or one area to the other and they connect ecosystems. This is exactly what is going on here, and it's just fascinating.
Yeah. And you think about like I mentioned earlier, like mission statements or passion statements, and that's kind of like what we that's our core ethos right there is we tell that story and we
Yeah.
actually believe it. Like we actually like get excited when we think about like what our technology is able to help customers do, and so really passionate about that, and as you can tell I get excited
Yeah.
when I talk about it as well,
And
but
you're
yeah,
good
that
at it
concept,
too.
yeah. So um wow, we have talked a long time. I
Yeah.
have truly appreciated this conversation, but I'm
Same.
going to give the floor to you to kind of close things out. Any final words? And then also, how can people find you? How can people work with you? If they need consultation and they need help, how do they reach out to you?
Well, thank you for having me today because I really enjoyed this conversation and I learned a few more things about Blackbird that I didn't know. So thanks for the demo too. I think it was super helpful. Final words, I would say the industry is on the verge of a breakthrough, and I'm really excited about it because it's long overdue. And what's really exciting is that platforms or companies like Blackboard are on the forefront of this breakthrough in terms of innovation and simplification and also governance all at once. So I'm really happy to see the evolution of localization. It's not doom and gloom. New roles are emerging, new technologies. In the past, and I think we needed it because in the past, change was relying on us to break through. Now I feel that the change realized that we can't break through on our own, so we will be pressure tested and we will put under pressure. And here we are as localization professionals and companies coming up with new rules and new technologies. So I'm really hopeful. Now, where to find me? LinkedIn is the easiest way to reach me. I also You can also connect with me on my website www.thelocaverse.com, where there's a variety of case studies and services, and also client and colleagues recommendations, people I've worked with for decades. And YouTube also. I would love at some point to have you on my podcast in the future then. So that would be great. But yeah, no, I'm really enjoying this new venture of consulting, bringing the client lens to the agency and both the buyer side of the business, and watching the evolution and being able to select the people I work with. I think that's what I enjoy the most. So yeah, no, thank you so much. This has been amazing.
Oh, same. I can't wait to have you on again, and I will absolutely take you up on that offer. I will join your
Yeah.
podcast whenever you want me to. And until then, bird watchers, keep your eyes to the skies for more awesome stuff coming soon. Bye bye.